ask hosts. There we go.
Okay. Yep, we're recording now.
Thank you. Awesome. So hopefully by our title of our training, we were so creative, personal statements. You knew today we're going to be focusing in on that, and that's zone 5. It is hashtag telling my story. That's where our curriculum focuses in. And I wanted to give you an overview just so we can kind of pinpoint where we're going to focus in today's training. So module 1, it is about what is a personal statement. Because they can come in different forms. It's not just a personal essay. It could be a cover letter if our students are thinking of a career. It could be a portfolio if they're thinking a trade school. So it's different things, but it's like that's an introduction to what they could be and why they're important. And then so we move on to module 2, which is about how do we identify the stories that we want to tell, and that's where we're going to be focusing in most of the next 25 minutes in. And then modules 3 and 4 are about creating and writing them. And the Graide Network is going to come in and support us. So they're going to come in, Rich from the Graide Network is going to come in to talk to us about like how you can use their tool and them as a resource to help in the revision process of if your students choose the personal essay as a way to tell their personal statement. So that's what we're going to be in today. And this is zone 5, y'all. So like, this is it in a really, really short minute. Drew, can you hit the next slide? So yeah, so how do we identify the stories we tell? And we wanted to focus here today just because it's sometimes like the more we do to prep our students, the better setup that they'll be for writing it and in the revision process. So welcome to Neil. Thank you. So I'm going to start us off with a fun question that always seems to be up for debate. And you can add in the chat or say it out loud, but is this glass half empty or half full? What do y'all think? What do you always say? Can you guys feeling positive today? Yes. Half full. Anybody half empty? Okay, Eric, half empty, yeah. Yep, depends on the day. I love that. Yeah. I love that. Drew, can you hit the so I'll say all those things can be correct. And if we think about it in an asset-based way, we can think about it in even another way, that it's completely full. Because if we think about it, half is air and half is water. So this is a way of thinking in an asset-based way to see what is beyond there and consider more possibilities. Like your answers weren't wrong, but there are more ways to see it, right? And so that's what we want to get our fellows to be able to think about when they tell their stories. It's like, what more can I tell about this story? So Drew, can you hit on the next slide? So this is not the prettiest slide, but it is like a great way of showing you all like, here's what like deficit-based thinking could look like, and that's on the left, thanks to the arrow. And then this is what asset-based thinking could look like. Drew, can you hit again? And I want to share this, like, if you look at this bottom one of like highlights past failures and highlights past successes and things learned, when we think a lot about the stories that our fellows tell, sometimes they tend to focus on just like the failures and might share a little bit more about the things that they learned. But sometimes it's hard for us to push them or really think about like, what else? Like, what about your past successes? We can hone in on that as well. And in all this, we're not saying like ignore past failures, like don't recognize them. We have to, right? We should celebrate them, but we also need to think about like past successes and like learnings that could have happened. So in my head, it's thinking about what's more, right? Moving just away from this deficit-based thinking and really thinking about asset-based and what can we add to the stories that will lead us for the stories our fellows tell to be stronger and better. So I want you to just take a minute, read through these 2 lists, and create examples in your head, or how would you describe them? And if you don't know, we're gonna have time to talk about them and you can ask us for examples or we can talk through them. But I want you guys to read them and then we'll talk. So just take a minute. My dog decides to bark every time I'm in a meeting, so if you hear that, I apologize. But are there any you need more clarification on? You're not sure what they are? You can come off mute or you can put it in the chat.
I'll just say that I appreciate the reframing since I saw the glass half empty.
Yes, it can be so much more, right? And you're not wrong that it's half empty, but there is so much more that you can see in that glass.
I was wondering if the tendency on doing it from the first column perspective has to do with the prompts that the schools use, because it's usually tell us of a story or an obstacle that you have overcome, but then the students spend so much time describing the tragedy, right? And then they don't use the essay in a balanced way to then showcase how they came strong from that experience. So I have personally always felt that the prompts are not very good prompts in what I have seen.
I don't disagree, Laura. Like, yeah. Right. And so it's like that part, it's like, and even then it's like the prompt isn't wrong, right? Like you can talk about an obstacle, but to your point, what did you learn? How did you overcome it? Right? Like, how did you see the possibilities beyond the obstacle, right? So it's that part. It's like you can talk a little bit about it, like there's nothing wrong with it, but it's like how do we bring in that asset-based thinking into the essay? Because I think that's the other thing too, is like stories are important and they're personal sometimes, and so it's like important to affirm them, but it's also important for us to push our fellows to think to what's possible and to think in an asset-based way. I love that. Any other, I don't know why I muted myself, any other clarifications or questions on any of these? Okay, I'm gonna move us along because I'm looking at time. Drew, can you hit the next one? So I wanted us to spend some time looking at some resources that we have in our curriculum, because I think it's important for you all to not have to go look everywhere else, but to see what's there already in the curriculum and use it to your advantage to set up fellows to be able to pick and tell their stories. So we're gonna look at two pieces. One is a workbook that our fellows are gonna go through in modules 1 and 2, and then a little bit in part 3, but mostly in focusing in on module 2. And then answer these questions, right? Like for yourself, like as you're trying to tell your fellows, like how would you explain that to them? Like what is an asset-based story? And why is it important for them to showcase that in their, like approach their personal statements in this way? And then as you're looking at the workbook, like what pieces do you want to bring to class so that fellows are writing empowering stories? I know that, given like the hybrid world, given like where we are in the world right now in terms of like COVID and everything, like we're falling behind in some parts. So if you need to catch up, like what are the pieces in the curriculum that you definitely want to bring in? And is there anything you need to do to supplement the workbook with? In our curriculum, we also have this resource from Temple University. And so I put it in here too, because I wanted to highlight it. It could be a way for you to also set up your fellows to really think about what story they want to pick. So we're going to break out into small groups of 2 to 3 people. and just walk through, like look through the workbook and answer these questions. And then we're gonna come back and someone's gonna share out what came up in your conversation, like 1 minute, like just super short summary. And the person who will share is whose ever birthday is next. So find out whose birthday is next and that person will share out. So hopefully your birthday just happened. Mine did, so I shouldn't be next. But yeah, so that's what we're gonna do in small groups for about 8 minutes. Any questions?
I have a question. The workbook, I'm trying to, how do,
Oh, sorry, I will put it in the chat. Yep, sorry,
Oh.
I apologize. I had made a note for myself to put it in the chat and then I didn't. Thank you, Sierra. So the first one that I linked in there is the workbook, and then the second one is Temple. If anybody has any issues logging in, please or accessing it, let me know, but it should be, because this is for all for fellows to access. Anyone with the link should be able to access it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Drew, do you mind
Yep.
putting us in the breakout? Perfect. Thank
Will
you.
do. Susie, should I stop recording and then re-record? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, let's stop so that there's no like 8-minute gap.
Okay. Hi,
Hey.
everyone. I got your note.
Yeah, we were trying to get the second link, but I hit the chat and it was here. So I think we just gotta open it, right? Do you all see the second link? Yeah, okay.
One from Temple. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Is there anything else you were wondering about?
I don't know why I can't open the PDF. I don't know. Maybe it's just my computer, but don't worry about it. I'll focus on the workbook.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Maybe we can make a couple points about the Temple University doc. But yeah, I think focusing on the workbook is a good idea.
Thank you.
Thanks for bearing with us. Susie, the Temple University document is not accessible.
Oh no, let me.
Hi, Rich.
Rich.
Welcome.
Our teachers right now are in breakout groups.
Very good. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good.
How are you? Nice to meet
Good.
you.
Okay, I might have
Yes,
to
thanks for all the
download-
emails, Drew. It's very organized. I appreciate it.
OneGoal has trained me well. Yeah, Susie, they're just going to focus on the workbook if they're having trouble.
Yeah. I don't know why. Because I think that this is a Temple, it's temple.edu.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna download it and then
Maybe you could just say a couple words about it. I wouldn't worry about it for the breakout sessions.
we can just send it. We can send it in the. I'll put it in.
Welcome back,
Welcome back.
everyone.
Always never enough time. But we definitely want to make time for the grades, so we're gonna come back. And I hope you all figure out who's gonna share. So I'll pass it on to whoever wants to start off. I don't know who were in the group, so I will maybe just say group one if you were in group one. And it's just a minute, so I should actually time it so we're good. Just share what you talked about, if anything came up for you as you're thinking about how you're setting up your fellows.
Are we going in particular order?
I said, I don't know if you guys had breakout group 1.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay.
No. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So we kind of ran out of time. We were looking at the workbook, but we did briefly talk about like the asset-based story would be something, not just so much focusing on like traumatic events or the hard times that you've been through. And although you can still share those, trying to focus on like positive things or things that you may have learned from certain experiences, and just kind of like spinning it in a positive way, I guess. And then the pieces of the workbook that we liked were the stories I like to tell and the brainstorming, different activities that you can have them think about to brainstorm ideas for their stories.
Perfect. Thank you. Breakout group 2.
So we talked about, we firstly looked at the workbook and definitely liked the idea of the brainstorming activities for the students in the hopes of it possibly allowing them to focus. It was talked about how students will start to tell their story, but the story, they kind of lose focus and it becomes less about them and more about, say, a parent or something like that. So just trying to help them kind of keep the focus where it should be. And then also how it is a personal statement, how sometimes they could possibly share too much of what's personal, which is also something that we found in the second section of the Temple resource that was given. And it was mentioned about how sometimes they don't want to share with their peers because they think that their story is so personal. It's difficult for them to you to do a workshop with them or something like that to get them to share with one another because they feel like it is just all so personal. Did I cover it up?
Oh, that was like perfect minute. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. I love that because it is your story is your story. It's going to be personal no matter what. And so how do you become comfortable telling? I love it. Breakout group number 3, I think.
I think that was us. I can go. Yeah, looking at the workbook, I think we kind of landed on the same page with the brainstorms slides. It seemed like a great idea to to sort of help generate, and doing it maybe as a daily activity, right? Something that came to mind immediately was also using this just as an opportunity again for Y1 to be able to build themselves a little bit, build up their classmates a little bit more, and be able to kind of share that out and still try and get that sense of community even through this. So that seems super helpful.
Love it. I'm going to turn off my timer. Yeah, I mean, the brainstorming, y'all, it's so helpful because sometimes fellows think that they don't have a story to tell. We all have so many stories to tell. And so in the past on OneGoal, we've used journal prompts. So if you even want to start doing some of that and just write a quick 2-minute story or something, those are great ways because those are great prompts just to have in general. Drew, can you hit the next one? And all I can say too is that I love how you're all thinking already about how you're going to prompt your kids and how you're going to frame this for them. So as they're telling their stories, they're already thinking in an asset way of thinking before they even get to write it. And then the last thing I'll say here is the thing I said, or we said earlier, is the personal statement in OneGoal could look differently, right? The personal essay is one way. Drew, can you hit the next one? So this is the typical college admissions essay, right? And the majority of our fellows will write one of these. Majority of our fellows are thinking about enrolling in a college. They're thinking about applying for scholarships and all this. So this is one way, and this is why the Graide Network is here to help us through that process of revisions. But there are other ways too, right? And so you'll see that in this zone. Drew, can you hit the next one? We're just gonna go through these pretty quickly. Another way is cover letter, right? Thinking about this still is a writing tool that fellows can use, but it's in the path of going if they're thinking about going directly into the job market. So this is another way. Drew, can you hit the next one? And then portfolio, right? If we're thinking about artists, if we're thinking about chefs, if we're thinking about going into the trades, like this is another way that fellows could present their work and create their personal statement for the zone. Drew, I think can you hit the next one? Yeah. So I just wanted to name that because as you're gonna if you dig into Zone 5, you're gonna see that your fellows can create their personal statements in different ways. So start thinking about like, how do I present this to them? Who might need to have these like other types of ways of like that we normally don't think about personal statements looking like? Who do I need to talk to about that? So we wanted to name that for you all. And then name the Graide is here, right? Rich is, I can't see him on my screen, but Rich, we'll welcome Rich in just a second. He is going to present to us what the Graide Network can do to support us because, like I said, majority will write a personal statement on a college essay. And so they'll be writing it, drafting it, and then they'll want feedback, right? And like to help you support you so that you don't have to give feedback to everyone. That is where the Graide Network is going to come in and give us and support us. So I'm going to pass it on to Rich. Andrew, you can actually stop sharing so Rich can share, I think, right?
Thank you, Susie. It's good to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Rich Tolsano. I'll be kind of walking you through the Graide Network process today. Just a little introduction on myself. I'm here in Chicago, just like you guys. Worked in Chicago public schools for a long time and actually worked at a school that was a OneGoal school for 4 years and really loved the program and worked closely with our program directors. So when I came over to Graide Network, saw it as a really great fit as a support for the fellows and the program directors alike. So I'm excited to chat with you guys. You should have gotten an email from me, either earlier this week or last week with the subject, welcome to the Graide Network. So if you want to just take 30 seconds now to sort of locate that. As part of the session today, I want to make sure you're all set to log in and use your account. You've got a lot on your to-do list, so we want to make sure we take this one off the to-do list and save you some time moving forward. So again, we'll just take 30 seconds or a minute here. If anybody didn't receive that or can't find it, let Susie know and she'll be able to add you right away, and then we'll get started. Basically, our agenda for today is going to be the following sort of 4 key objectives. I want you to know what the partnership includes and what we offer, how we'll be supporting those personal statements in particular. We'll sort of plan out what your submission timeline can look like. I'm sure that you're all on a slightly different schedule based on what's going on at your school. We'll dig into the platform itself. So we'll set up your courses. Hopefully you're using Google Classroom. That will make it really easy. And then we'll look at some of the sample feedback reports that we provide to talk about how you can use it with your students. So just with a sort of a thumbs up in the chat or visually on the screen, do folks have that email ready to go? Okay, I see some head nods, a couple thumbs up. Perfect. Yeah, I think it was a mix of like school emails and OneGoal. So I know that's always tricky to keep track of. Okay, so in terms of who the Graide Network is, let's just give a little brief overview. Our goal is really to push students forward on their writing with an emphasis on feedback for everybody. So as a teacher, we're always trying to find ways to give our students feedback, whether that's formal in the written process or informal through one-on-one conferencing, discussions with them. But it's really hard when you have 25, 50, 100, 150 students, or for you guys' sake, you have your OneGoal classes and then you have all the regular classes that you teach too, right? There's a lot on your plate. So we're here to help you with that. And so, the reason feedback is so critical is there's a ton of research out there that shows that when students receive feedback, it really pushes their learning forward at an accelerated rate. There's actually been some studies looking at, hundreds of teaching techniques, and feedback consistently ranks at the top. So we by no means invented this idea. We're just trying to capture it and really provide the assist that teachers need to take advantage of that feedback in our daily and busy lives. So essentially what we do is we have online grading support you'll have an account with us. You'll have your fellows write a personal statement in Google Docs or something of that nature, right? Using Google Classroom. You'll send that through to your Graide Network account, and we'll assign you one of these fantastic readers that you see pictured on the screen, who are qualified to review students' personal essays, and they'll provide every kiddo with feedback on their writing. And so they'll use the OneGoal rubric to do that. They'll look at the personal statement prompts from the Common App that you guys are using, and every student will get a ton of feedback. You know, certainly something that you could do yourself, but you'd really have to add that extra hours on nights and weekends to make it happen. And we do it all in just 6 calendar days. So you can send us all 30 kids or 50 kids, whatever you have in your program, and we'll get them all done within 6 calendar days, sometimes quicker. And to be completely honest with you, our graders, their favorite thing is to do personal statements. We work across, you know, K-12 and community college, and there's all sorts of other essay types, you know, AP class free response questions, you know, essays on literature, things like that. But they always tell us time and time again that personal statements are their favorite. I think it's because of what you guys are discussing when I joined, which is there's that personal nature to it. They're really powerful stories. So they take that responsibility very seriously. So to make sure that the feedback's really effective, we've sort of honed in on what we call the 7 hallmarks. So just wanted to give you a little sense of this. This is the training that our graders go through. It's really hard. I had 10 years in the classroom before I joined, and I had to go through the training as a new employee just to get a sense of what it's like. And I didn't pass it the first time, which is sort of funny. And I was very humbled by that. I was a math teacher mostly, so I like to blame that, but I think it really does speak to the importance we put on this responsibility. So because we've got this partnership, you know, we already have your OneGoal rubric. We've been using it for 3 years. The readers will prioritize their feedback in that language and score based on those requirements that are already expected of them. You know, personal statements we know very well, you know, even outside of OneGoal. So they'll be very actionable. You know, when you're trying to explain your story, consider adding this level of depth to the details that you're providing. Or here's some suggestions for the way you could better structure or organize your essay to take it from sort of an informal writing to a really formal writing that perhaps an admissions counselor would want to see. And then putting it in a friendly language. We want the kids to be encouraged and excited. The worst thing that could happen is that they get tons of actionable feedback and just feel crushed by it. So you'll see tons of positivity in their feedback as well. And we hope you can use that momentum just like you would do in your classroom with sort of positive framing to have them do a revision afterwards as well. So I'll kind of pause there just to see if there's any immediate questions. I love the enthusiasm in the chat, so thanks for that. And then we'll get into the details of how it works. But any questions so far? Okay, so let me know if they come up, of course, in chat, or just feel free to interrupt me. In terms of our partnership with, not so much your school, but with OneGoal, is each of you will be able to submit a batch of your fellows' personal statements for scoring and feedback with us anytime between now, if you're ready, and the end of the school year. So, you know, that roughly June 15th period, you know, and you get the feedback returned in 6 calendar days, like I said. And so what I want to walk you through now is just kind of how that actually works. So in terms of how it works is you're going to plan out the assignment. For you, that's easy. You've already got a rubric. You've got the Common App prompts. So not a ton of extra lifting there. Obviously, if you haven't shown your fellows the rubric yet, make sure you spend some time in class, you know, kind of going over what are the requirements of this and how will you be, you know, evaluated is maybe not the right word, but like what are the areas we want to look for that are important, right? Give them time to work on it. For your sake, this doesn't have to be a timed assignment. Obviously, it's not like that kind of writing. You want them to spend a couple of days on it, whether that's in class, some at home time, whatever makes sense. You know them best. It can be handwritten or typed. Typed is certainly preferable in a Google document, as we can provide the most amount of feedback when it's in that case. But if you have anybody who has, you know, access issues or prefers to handwrite, they can always take a picture of that document and you can get it over to us that way as well. You'll sort of upload all that to your account. and then you get the feedback reports. So let's take a look at kind of how it works. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and log into your Graide Network account and give everyone a minute to do that. And then I'll kind of walk you through setting up your courses. So just put sort of a ready to go or something in the chat once you're logged in. You might hear a couple squeaks from my daughter in the background. You guys know what the work from home life is like. But just let me know when you're ready to go and logged in, and we'll jump into setting up your courses. And while folks are getting logged in, is it correct to assume that you all are using Google Classroom for your OneGoal courses? Is there anybody who's not using Google Classroom? Perfect. So we'll walk through the Google setup. Looks like we've got 4 or 5 people who are ready to go. So basically, first thing you're going to do is on your sort of steps, you're going to see it says add my courses is the first one. So if you click on that add my courses option, you're going to go ahead and click the import from Google Classroom button. And it's going to ask you for some permissions to sort of link Google and the Graide Network. This basically allows us to kind of access that information. Really, the only thing that we're looking at is your specific Google Classroom course that you provide us, and then eventually the specific set of essays that you show us. So kind of once you click that button, you'll see an image similar to what's on my screen where it's a list of your courses. You go ahead and pick the one that you use for OneGoal by clicking the little checkbox, and then you'll fill in the discipline, the subject, and the grade level. This is a little bit tricky because your OneGoal classes aren't really like an English class per se. They're not a math class, but I think for your sake, this drop-down menu is so that we match you with the right kind of grader. So I would just choose English Language Arts and High School ELA, even though a OneGoal class doesn't really fit that quite. It's just so that we get you the right kind of grader versus like a science grader. And then, your grade level, I believe, for everybody would be 11th grade because this is the Y1 group. So once you fill those in, you'll hit import. I think it is technically mobile friendly, but I would not advise logging in on a mobile device. There isn't like an app or anything. Interdisciplinary is fine, Maria. That's probably a really good choice. So that works out well. Perfect. So you'll go ahead and hit import courses, and that'll bring in your students. If you were to click on that course that you have, so I'll kind of show you an example here. It'll show the roster that automatically came in. I teach a really famous English class here. It's been a real treat to have all 5 of them in here this school year. Thank you for laughing at that. It's been a long year. And so, yeah, basically, I can't imagine your rosters are changing at this point, but if they did, they'll automatically sync with Google Classroom. All right, so you're all set to go with your courses. Basically, what would happen next is in Google Classroom, you would go ahead and actually assign out the essay itself. So once the students have turned it in through Google Classroom, then you're going to come back to us, because really the piece that we play a role in is in the scoring and feedback. So all of the assigning it to students and the collecting can be done in Google Classroom. So when you're ready, you'll hit post an assignment. You'll do again the import from Google, and it will find all of your Google Classroom assignments that you've given in that particular course that you've linked. If you forget how to kind of do this, there's a little tour that's built in that you see here. I'm going to just say no thank you to it, but if you need the step-by-step instructions, right, you forget this because you're not using it for another 3 weeks, it's here for you. But basically, you're going to find that essay that you want to give. So let's say it was, this To Kill a Mockingbird one for me. And I'm going to say, I want you to grade those students. So for you, it might be personal statement or whatever you're calling that in Google. And then we'll ask you a couple of questions about it. So it's an essay. Do you want to add inline comments? I would strongly recommend these because I imagine your kids will revise their personal statements a number of times. This isn't like the last version, I hope. Maybe even if it's not till the fall, they'll get extra comments directly in the Google Doc. Maybe they're each about a page and a half. And then you'll kind of hit continue. And when you do, because of the setup that Susie has done, on your next step, you're gonna be asked for the sort of rubric and prompts, and you don't really have to do anything other than just check the only one that will be available to you, which is the official set of Common App prompts and the OneGoal rubric. So you just select that one and hit post assignment. And just so you can kind of see, if you were to open these up, you would see the document that Susie uploaded, which is the list of Common App prompts. Students can obviously respond to any of these 7 that are on here. It helps if they, somehow label on theirs which one they're responding to, but they don't have to. Our graders are pretty accustomed with the Common App ones that usually you can tell which one they're responding to. And because they're so open and flexible, it doesn't even matter that much that they, explicitly respond to every component of it, right? And then also the OneGoal rubric is in there with the particular areas. And these will be what students are scored on and how their feedback will be prioritized. So they'll be looking for, a singular focus in that personal statement, a personal revelation, right? Details, etc. And it's going to be evaluated sort of on this 4-point scale that you see here from beginner to exceptional. So really trying to push the kids, the score they get, I would talk to them up front, frankly means nothing, right? Getting a 20 on this versus a 15 doesn't mean that you're more likely to get into the school of your choice or anything like that, but it's about kind of thinking of that proficiency and that areas that we can improve on. And I don't want them to think of it as like a grade or try to convert it to a percentage or anything. I don't think that will do anyone any good, but really just having that growth mindset and thinking about what they're working towards. And so at that point, you'll go ahead and hit post assignment and you'll be all set to go on the Graide Network side. So let me pause there just to see if there's any questions on sort of this process before I switch gears to kind of walking you through what the reports look like in particular.
Rich, we're just having issues logging in. Noi, I think Michelle got in. Was everybody else able to log in? Okay. I like switched Noah to his OneGoal email since he didn't get it to his CPS, but then it just like so we're trying to figure it out, but hopefully it works.
Yeah, let me put in the chat as well, just in case. Putting the direct login link, and then the password is defaulted to this very secure password that you see in the chat. Recommend that you do change it, but if you're having any trouble, just use your email and that password at least to get in the first time. Perfect. And so I'm going to just switch to another demo account that has some assignment set up, just so you can see what it'll look like once things are underway. So, you've got your courses set up, you've got assignments in progress. For you guys, your dashboard will look a lot simpler. You're just using us for the one personal statement. But basically the way that it works is once you've submitted the work to us, you'll kind of be able to track and monitor, where it is in the process, right? So, let's say that you did an essay with us, you'd be able to see that Jana is your grader. If you need to, you can message her. Sometimes things come up, you had 10 kids who didn't turn it in yet, and you want Jana to know that those 10 are coming in another couple of days. That could be something that you could message her. The nice thing is with Google Classroom, as long as the kids turn it into Google Classroom, if Jana were still working on the assignment, she'll get them and be able to grade those as well. If she's already sent you the reports back, I'll show you, you can just kind of reopen the assignment anytime a week after we've returned them to you to add any extra kids. So you always kind of want to, you've got a little buffer built in there, but you sort of want to wait till at least the majority of students have turned it in before you send it over to us. And then you'll kind of see these different stages, whether we're looking for a grader for you, they're working on it, or it's going over a final quality check with our team. Once an assignment is complete, you'll get an email notifying you, hey, everything's ready to go, log in and take a look. You'll just click into view reports, and you'll immediately be taken to your class summary page, where we'll explain to you kind of at the teacher level, what did that grader find for all 20 kids that they looked at? What were the strengths of that class and what were the areas of opportunity? And so you can kind of get a sense of what are the big picture things that as a group, my cohort of fellows can be celebrated for and can continue to work on. You'll get a breakdown of kind of scores on the components of the rubric. So in your case, this would look like the specific criteria of that OneGoal rubric. And then you'll see for every student exactly how they scored and be able to kind of access the reports themselves here. So you can download those student reports. These are a one-pager for each kiddo. What we have kind of you do is you're going to download them first and take a look, make sure that everybody got reviewed, nobody got missed, everything is up to your expectations. If it is, you can print them and share them with kids. I assume most of your schools, you have at least some of your students that are not in person, if not all of them being remote. You can use this return reports feature to email them to students. You'll just type in their email addresses and send those back. Just to kind of give you a sense of what those reports look like, I pulled up one from a few years ago. So here's an example of a fellow's report that she received. So the criteria, I think these might have changed slightly from a few years ago, but some of them, that focus one, the personal revelation. So the scores on that OneGoal rubric, and then she's going to get her feedback specifically from her grader. Like I said, we try to balance like the strengths and the improvements so that there's a lot of positivity in what's being provided to her. One thing you might notice is the grader will quote her essay a bunch of times, trying to be like as actionable, like in this specific place, like here's an example of what I'm talking about where you could kind of celebrate what you did very well or something that you can work on. And then the reports are always signed. This one looks like it got so much feedback that I got kicked to the next page, but Juliet, her grader, kind of signs it. It's fun because the graders are mostly undergraduate students themselves. So it could be a fun way to sort of talk about, in this case, like Texas A&M, is that a school anyone's interested in? Like, kind of neat that Juliet goes there if you think that'd be of interest to your fellows as well. So in terms of, everything today, I think the couple of key things that I'll sort of hammer home before hearing from you guys is you want to let the students know about this in advance. So make sure they know about that rubric, make sure they know that they'll be getting feedback. I think especially if you do the inline comments with the Google Doc, I'll just point out that you guys know, having used Google Docs a bunch, if I leave a comment on your document, you get notified, right? And so you want to make sure that you tell the kids in advance that you're using this, because they'll start to get those little notifications of the comments from their graders. And we've heard from students in the past that if their teacher didn't let them know ahead of time, that can be a little bit jarring. Whereas that one-page report that I showed you, this document gets returned to you first, and then you give it to the kids. So you just kind of want to set them up for success in knowing, what's coming and what to do with it. And I do recommend, if you can fit this in, sooner than later, then you can spend time in your classrooms or meeting with students to sort of unpack the feedback, make the revisions. I know some of that'll happen next fall as well, but obviously we want them to use the feedback to revise and to edit. So thinking about, when you can do that. Certainly we'd rather you submit, even at the end of the year, even if you knew like, I may not really get to this till the fall, at least you can save all the reports and you'll have that. That could be a good, like, worst case scenario. We'd love for as many of you as possible to get feedback. So I'd love to kind of just open it up to your questions. Went through some of that pretty quick, but want to hear, you know, anything you're excited about, questions you have, something you want me to show you again. Want to make sure you walk out of here in a couple minutes ready and set up for success.
Something I'm excited about is the fact that you guys provide like detailed feedback, because I know like just reading through like student assignments in this virtual setting, it's so hard to give students like individualized feedback, and like, you know, it's just really hard and it takes a lot of time. And so having somebody to help with that process is exciting.
I definitely agree, Kenya. I'm so excited for this. I did have a question. I just wanted to make sure I knew how to distinguish if I want them to get the one with the form back or the Google Docs. How do I get the one you just showed us if I want to do it that route instead of through the Google Docs? What do I do?
Yeah, so like, how do you actually get this to the students?
Well, how do I, because, okay, so we're gonna upload from Google Classroom what they're doing in Google Classroom. And then you said, let them know they're gonna be getting comments back through Google Docs. But if I don't, can we like not do that route and they just get this?
Yes, so when you create the assignment, we'll ask you, do you want to add those inline comments? You don't have to check that box. That's optional. We know that it's not the right fit for everybody, so we give you sort of the choice. And so, yeah, if you don't select that box, that won't happen, and they'll get these reports instead. And basically in your teacher page, when we say, we'll email you and say, hey, your reports are ready, log in, you'll see that big view reports button. And then at the bottom of that page, it'll say download. Are you a CPS teacher or do you work at a charter here in the city? Okay, so one thing I'll mention, so there's a function where you can email these reports to students. So if you wanted to, you could like enter their emails. I think it's good to note that like CPS tends to block any outside folks emailing students. So if you're a CPS teacher, I might caution you to just download these and sort of like you email them to students rather than using our function, because it's just often more of a headache to bureaucratically go and get all those permissions. For your charter school, I don't know what the setup is, so you may know better, but you can you'll be able to download these and you'll get them in two ways. One way is that, similar to you see here, if I just scroll through, I see every student. So here's Tyrese's feedback, Nikea's feedback, right? As I go through, I get every student. Or you can download them as singular files. So if you just wanted to send Destiny her feedback, you'd have just a document for Destiny and can like upload that to Google Classroom. You could print it for her. You could email it to her directly.
Okay. And can you only use Graide through Google Classroom? What if your school was using Canvas or another site?
Yeah, so you don't have to use Google Classroom. So you would just, instead of hitting the import from Google Classroom, you would do the manual setup. It's 95% exactly the same. The difference is that instead of like automatically importing stuff, you would be adding the students' names for the course setup. So it's like a one-time, you just type in the student names. And then when you are creating the assignment, instead of like automatically importing like all the essays from Google Classroom, you would just link the Google Drive folder that they've been saved in. So like if you use Canvas, I think I heard, and I'm assuming on Canvas you still have them submit Google Docs, but correct me if I'm wrong. You would just have like a folder that's like, OneGoal personal statements, and you would just link that Google Drive folder when we ask you to upload the work.
Okay.
And we have like little, it's hard to show it because there's so many combinations, but we have like little tips and stuff built into it. So if you get stuck, it'll kind of walk you through that with a little tour. But certainly if you get stuck, feel free to email our support as well, and we'll help you right away. we are pretty good about our quick response.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Awesome. Well, we are very excited to work with you guys in terms of like where we go from here. If you get stuck at any point, this sort of hello@thegradetnetwork.com is like our teacher support email. So it's good 7 days a week. You're welcome to email me as well. But being one person, it might take me 48 hours to get back to you. Whereas if you email this, there's like a whole bunch of us who can support you based on, you know, it's Friday at 3 p.m. We'll get back to you quickly, kind of thing. So I do recommend if you get stuck, if you have like a issue with logging in. So I think we still have maybe 1 or 2 folks who are having trouble with that. Let's resolve that. Susie, you and I can connect and figure out what's going on there. Make sure everyone can log in. But otherwise, like, we're really excited to work with you guys and encourage you to, you know, utilize this as soon as possible and whenever it fits appropriately in your scope and sequence that you have coming up.
I have one more question. So can the students, I know you give them feedback the first time and then they write. Are we then keeping up with the edits that they're making, or can it go back to you so they can have that same person check if they've done, you know, everything that they've recommended correctly, or does it end with just that initial interaction?
Yeah, the setup that we have for this year is just one round of feedback. So fellows will get just that one time, and then you can take that feedback and sort of unpack it with them. Maybe you want to have them submit the second time to you or to each other and do some peer review. You know, one technique that could be good is hopefully if they've seen our reports and sort of some good feedback practices modeled, maybe then they could give each other a little bit of feedback like that. I know it's not as easy as I'm making it sound, but some ideas that you could have to kind of turn it into sort of 2 or 3 rounds of revision if you'd like.
And I'll also add here, if you're finding that, Susie, it would be really helpful if we could do 2 rounds. Technically, like, Graide can do that. We would just have to sign up to do that. And I mean, we approach it as 1 round just because of the time we have at the end of the school year, and we typically really only have fellows go through 1 round of revision. And so that's how we set up. But like, if your learning is like, it would have been great if we did 2 learnings, please share it back with us, because that might change how we approach it next year. So I know it's not for you all, but it's always great to take learnings from people who've done it. So yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and just to check for my understanding, so let's say NOE has a batch of students who get to the personal statement this year and want to submit. They can do that, right? And then others can submit later in the fall if they want.
So right now, this round is for this, I was gonna say this fall, this spring, just because of how the fiscal year works for nonprofits or for even schools, I guess, because they end in the summer. But that is something we're exploring if it is needed for the fall. I know Rich and I had started talking about it, but it all depends on our budget for OneGoal. But for right now, I just assume right now it's for the spring. So that's why I think what Rich said is, like, even if you get it in right before school ends, like if fellows finish that first draft, send them in. You might not get the report back immediately or like have time because kids are out, but you will have those reports and that feedback ready for when they come in the fall.
Awesome, good questions, guys. Anything else? Obviously, better to make sure everyone feels good now than be stuck when you're kind of off on your own in another week or 2.
I think that's it, Rich. No, I appreciate you, Rich, joining us. Yeah, and I know everybody's like, curriculum pacing. You think everything is going to work out, and I know people are in different places. So I just encourage you again to send it in before the end of the school year and really prompt your students to use this resource because it's awesome. and hopefully builds your capacity, because then you don't have to give all the feedback yourself. So thank you. Drew, do you want to share the screen and we can close out?
Thanks,
Sure.
everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Rich.
Rich, thank you.
And you'll follow up with Noah. I saw that in the chat.
Yeah,
right?
I'll copy you on it, and know if it's not working, just keep telling me. We'll get to the root of this.
I think it's my fault. I changed the email and then I was like, oh no.
It's
Okay.
fine. We'll figure it out. No worries.
Okay,
Thanks,
cool.
guys.
Thank you. We're closing out, y'all. So this is great. It is just, Drew, can you actually go back? Oh, actually, you're gonna talk about this.
Yeah, just wanted to make some Y1 announcements. Each end of month kind of has a special attachment to it. So our high priorities for the spring are to have you complete a swag survey. So if you haven't already, please collect t-shirt sizes for your fellows. If you have Y1 and Y2 cohorts, you'll complete the survey twice, once for Y1, once for Y2. And that way we can get you t-shirts, lanyards, and a very small but special surprise next month or at latest in June. There's also best fit lists. And so, you know, if you're feeling like you may not get to personal statements or you may just touch on it this year, that can be okay. But by the end of May, we want you to have fellows submitting their best fit list through the My Options tool, last tab, and then that will take them to a form that they will complete around their professional aspiration and investment in their list and some other questions. And you'll talk to your DTS about how to track progress for fellows in our system. Some other like medium priorities, we're calling them. Don't forget that you have $250 per Y1 cohort that we're calling like a kitty or a stipend for you to spend. So more information on a one-pager that we'll share after this session. But please spend that money. Like Susie knows that we often have somewhere between 1/3 and 2/3 of the money is spent, and then the rest of it just isn't. And that money then just kind of sits there. So please spend, and then follow those instructions, reach out to your DTS so you can get reimbursed. And then finally, there's a UIC pre-college summer chance program. It has programs like STEM that encourage you to take a look at and share with your fellows on Google Classroom. And that, friends, is the end. But before you sign off, ask that you complete the OneGoal survey and then separately the CPDU survey so that I can send you evidence of completion. You can upload that towards recertification with the CPDU survey, and then the OneGoal survey helps us do our jobs better. So we appreciate all of your thoughts. And so I'll put that in the chat, and then you can please fill that out and then sign off. Really great to work with you all today. Feeling a little wistful that this is, I think, Susie, what is this our last training for Y1 for the year?
Is not. May 18th.
Sorry, say it again, Drew. We have one more, our transition to Y2.
Quick question, can you email me the survey? Can you email the surveys?
Yes, I put them in the chat, but I can also email if that's easier.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're gonna send a follow-up email, and I included that in there, so you will also get that. Don't you worry. Feel free to hop off when you are done, y'all. Like, go enjoy that sun before it goes away. I just keep looking out my window and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take my dog out on a walk, so enjoy it. Michelle, and I don't know if you're still here, what size does the fellow need? Bye, Laura.
Have a good day, everybody.
Oh, it should be on the.
Bye, Sarah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Bye, y'all. Enjoy the warm weather, y'all. Michelle, sorry. Bye, Tana. Have a good day. Michelle, since it's, I don't know if you can hear me, since it's just us and Brian. Hey, Brian. Drew, is this a survey that you are giving fellows? Drew, why do I feel like there was a survey you created that they could copy for fellows?
Yes. Let me locate that. There's a couple versions I had. Let me.
Yeah, make sure that it does. We have 3XL, and I actually just got confirmation from Chloe that we do have 4XL. So Michelle was saying that the fellow didn't see his size as an option.
Okay.
In the form that you'll submit at the end, Michelle, so even if you already sent this out to them, it's okay. In the one that I added, I'm actually gonna, now you're reminding me that we have 4XL, so I'm gonna actually put it in here. In that form that you will submit to us as like the final one, it does have it as a 4. We do have, you could pick an XL.
Okay, I'll edit the form then.
Yeah, and Michelle, I just sent
my
you.
own form and I copied and pasted the options, but I don't know. Tyree said he didn't see a size, and also the t-shirts from last year. Apparently his size was not available from the shirts from last year too, which is strange. I don't know.
Yeah, let me know in this, when you hit here, I'm gonna show you my screen. So when you, oh no. Well, in the form that you submit, you'll see that in there. And if you don't, just email Drew and I.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, no. I know how important it is. I feel like, I don't know why last year Drew and I were in a crusade to make sure that